If somebody is suicidal, a single conversation has the power to change and save their lives. My name is Rose McCabe. I am Professor of Clinical Communication and my area of research is in mental health. I'm really interested in communication and the power this has really to change the quality of healthcare interactions. So I focus on a wide variety of mental health difficulties. How important is communication for people and how can we improve their experience? We also look at kind of sensitive topics like how do you talk about suicide? How do you talk about difficult material? Because mental health can be difficult to bring up in consultations. We really focus on what kinds of communication facilitate people to open up. The way that we communicate influences what somebody else will tell us. We look at something called the design of questions, whereby the doctor will say, "You're not experiencing any suicidal thoughts, are you?" They're expected to say no to that question. And that's really important because we know that people find it difficult to volunteer that information. We also look at non-verbal communication. So if a patient says no, but non-verbally they're saying yes, then that's really important to understand. Once you start looking at communication, it's almost like a mediator between healthcare professionals and people who feel like they've less of a voice. There's a nice quote from Rudyard Kipling, which is that words are the most powerful drugs. And to me, that's the overarching aim of what our kind of research is hoping to do, which is really to harness the kind of untapped potential of the power of communication. There's a lot of stigma still around mental health. We want to make sure that people feel supported and they feel like they can come back for help if they need it. We've been working with psychiatrists doing some really interesting work around hearing voices. One of the most powerful things actually that the psychiatrist said to us about the training was doing a hearing voices simulation, helped them to develop a lot of respect actually for what people have to endure on a daily basis.
Hello. The sound of my voice is a welcome. You ready?
One of the things that's really strong in our research is involving people with lived experience. A current ongoing project actually is a Photo Voice project. It's looking at people who have been detained under the Mental Health Act, so against their will. And that's been a fascinating project in terms of getting an insight into people's experiences on mental health wards, what's helped them. That's a really important piece of work. I've always been interested in people who are maybe disempowered. I think that's why I've always been drawn to mental health. We're continuing to work with NHS staff, but also stakeholders beyond that, so people who use services and people who care for them, because often their stories are really powerful in terms of changing practices and changing people's approaches. We've got some new work starting on youth mental health, hearing their perspectives, how that interacts with their school life, their home life, before they reach healthcare services. Each research project can change the trajectory for people, so both in the short term in the research project, but also in the longer term in terms of implementing beneficial ways of working into the services themselves.